First up, joining us here tonight, the incumbent for County Commissioner Precinct 4, Commissioner Ken Clark. Commissioner? Next up, one of the challengers here tonight, Michelle Hatmaker. Your mics are on there. And the other challenger tonight, Billy Enos. Now, the fourth candidate in this race, Jim Bolger, called last night. His family has been trying to get together for Christmas ever since December, and they were all coming in for this weekend, so he said he can't make it. Come on in, take a chair wherever you'd like. And candidates, your microphones should be on. Don't take them real fast before we get going, and then we'll get going.
Mic test, mic test.
Ken Clark, County Commissioner, working for you.
And everyone here okay for those first two? How about you, Bill? Give it a test. Everyone okay here tonight? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out here tonight. As we talked about in this format, it's more of a conversational style. Feel free, if you'd like to stand up, you can, but if you're standing up, I'll make you sit down so that I can see the other candidates. So that's why we have the high chairs here tonight. As I said, we had a drawing earlier to decide who would go first. And our first topic is one that's always fresh on everyone's mind still, and that's Hurricane Harvey. And Billy, you get the start off here. And obviously what goes into this is that it's asking, just here on the 18th, we have the GLO released its Harvey plan of how the funds were going to be distributed that it's got from HUD. Roughly around 80% of that is going to be going to Harris County and Houston. The rest of the surrounding area around here, about 20% of that, of the millions of dollars for that. And so the question it starts off with is that, when you have a situation like that, given the widespread flooding we had in Dickinson, Friendswood, Leeds City, particularly, right here within the district, as a county commissioner, what would you do to make sure that gets rectified? Because a lot of folks are pretty upset about that right now.
Thank you, TJ. Before we start, I'd like to thank you for hosting tonight's event. I'd like to thank the chambers that put this on. I'd like to recognize my lovely wife, Robin Yates. Appreciate your support, sweetie. Before we get to the question of how we spend the funds exactly, I'm going to give you a little bit of my background around.
There you can. Will you get a chance to do that at the end?
Well,
right now, seriously, I'm sorry not to cut you off, but it's to the question that we asked. Is Commissioner, what you do? You'll get to get yourself to
well, my unique perspective was I was able to work the emergency operations desk during Hurricane Harvey. So I got to see what was happening from an inside viewpoint. So it was a little bit of that. I got to see where things were falling down and where things weren't happening. So it allows me to have a unique perspective and how the funds would be spent. And the thing that frustrates me about the hurricane situation is being on the Gulf Coast, it's not if we're going to have another hurricane, it's when we're going to have another hurricane. We've got to address this sooner or later. We saw what happened with Ike, we saw what happened with Rita and Ashland. So as a county commissioner, when you look at things like storm protection, surge protection, hurricanes, it's hard for the county to do it alone. You usually need federal help and state help. The more we rely on the county commissioner and the commissioner's court is to be that force that's going to pull all these municipalities together, it's going to pull the elected officials together.
But
it's going to have the right conversation.
If I can, the question about though is about this particular plan from the GLO that just got released on the 18th, and that funding already has been, and they're taking public comment, but as a commissioner, what would you be doing to make that the folks here get more of a piece of the pie?
Well, you got to go fight. You got to be active. You got to be local. As a commissioner, the county is the one opportunity that can unite municipalities. So when you have cities like Friendswood, like Big City, they don't have as many of a voice to go at it alone. So as a county commissioner, you need to unify the forces, bring those elected officials in the municipalities together, educate everybody on what the terms and conditions are in the GLO, which I have not had a chance to read the GLO, so I don't know.
Gotcha. All right. Michelle, how about you? Did you get a chance to look at that plan?
I understand what you're talking about. 80% did go to Harris County, and the remaining 20% went to the other coastal areas south of us. So Galveston County has not been allocated any funds at this point at all. To me, commissioners, we live on the coast. We know this is inevitable. We know it's coming down the pike at some point. And so to me, building relationships as you go, to be prepared for this is the first line of defense. Then standing up and fighting for your community, for your citizens, to get your fair share of funds that are allocated. As of noon today, it's my understanding that nobody from Galveston County has, from Commissioner's Court, has written a letter. Nobody has stood up to fight for our citizens. And their public comments are available, I believe, through February 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. There is a second round of funding coming through the system, and we need to be first and ready to go to fight for that money, to get money to our devastated areas as soon as possible.
Commissioner, let me ask you, Michelle had said that no one's written a letter from Commissioner's Court. Is that true? I mean,
Well, the one thing, thank the chambers for hosting us and you, TJ, for moderating. Let me begin by saying that this is a newly unveiled plan. 80% of the money was earmarked to Harris County, so we really don't have any control over that. We have to go after not only the 20%, but having gone through Hurricane Ike and Hurricane Harvey, I've developed the relationships at HGAC because I've been a member of the board of directors of HGAC since before Hurricane Ike. I've developed those relationships, and I have fought for money during Hurricane Ike to where the formula was advantageous to Galveston County.
let me ask you.
But let me finish. I'm getting to your question here. You talked about the 20%. That is a new program that was unveiled. It's all new to all of us. So we're going to have to evaluate what it says and make those calls to find out what's going on, to see why Galveston County was overlooked in our municipalities.
But is not somebody involved in keeping an eye on this during this time and having to be, I mean, quite frankly, the land commissioner's been down here for a lot of photo ops here in the last several months, but this seems to be something that got through, or was this anticipated to come and it was like fight for it when the second round of funding came through?
Well, I think what you have is you've got 80% that was earmarked for Harris County. There's more rounds that are coming. CDBG has over $5 billion that has been committed that hasn't been delivered from Congress that will be able to be utilized for long-term recovery, but we also need to focus on the short-term recovery and fight for those dollars as well.
Is that satisfying to the two of you, what you just heard right there?
There's 20% left to share among the coastal areas. We should have gotten at least a portion of that 20% to let our citizens know that we are there fighting for them. There is no reason or excuse in my book to not stand up and take what we need for those people that are still suffering.
Bill, go ahead.
No county is going to be hit harder than Galveston County when it comes to this type of situation. Therefore, we should be doing everything we can. When you look at a project like this, you got to understand there's local stakeholders, there's state stakeholders, and national stakeholders. There's no one that understands and cares about this more than those that are supposed to do that. That is us. That is the county commissioner and county level should be leading that charge, should be making that.
And folks, forgive us, we're relying on the Clear Creek ISD school systems. Sounds like they warned us when we got here today it wasn't going to be the most consistent, so that's the hiss here. So hopefully it's not interfering too much with that.
I guess just one quick last follow-up on that, TJ, is if I remember correctly, the plan or the $57 million distribution came out either yesterday or the day before. Is that correct?
On the 18th.
On the 18th.
Right.
Well, as most people may or may not be aware of, Commissioner's Court is required to post notice 72 hours in advance to be able to discuss public business. We've not had a meeting since then, and so we just can't get together and talk about things without public notice.
Can't as individual commissioners, you pick up the phone and say, hey, what the heck? I mean,
If you have those relationships built and they're positive relationships, you can.
all right. Let's go on to also again with Hurricane Harvey. The Long Range Recovery Group just recently formed right before the new year. In talking with those folks and FEMA officials, there's about an estimate, and this may be conservative, $12
To be honest with you, TJ, it's heartbreaking to hear some of the stories of people that call me in desperation of the condition that they're in. It's unfortunate because we're going to have a lot of people who were middle class and upper middle class. This storm is going to devastate them. And we need to come up with solutions to try to make them whole and allow them to recover. And it's a challenge because we don't have deep pockets like the federal government does. That's why everybody, not only the three of us here, but everybody in this room and everybody watching tonight is frustrated because we're waiting on the federal and state government to introduce their implementation plan, which the first segment was that 57 million with 80% committed to Harris County. We've got to continue to work to try to get them to break free with the dollars, because if they would come forward with the funding, we could implement recovery rather quickly. Because during Hurricane Ike, when we went through the housing program, Republican Commissioners Court revamped that housing program, and we became the model housing program for the state of Texas through DSW Homes, Sullivan Brothers, and one other vendor. And they knocked it out of the park, and that's what really made a difference. We need to give these contractors the opportunity and the ability to not only do the prep and the dollop, but the CDBG, so we can allow these people to recover.
Shel, what's it going to take if you were on the Commissioner's Court now, or as this will continue on, what's it going to take to get the program the Commissioner talked about here, fast forward a little bit?
Well, I was in Dickinson yesterday and I met with some of the officials, and they feel like they've been truly let down by Commissioner's Court. They feel like they've been ignored. And we talk about League City and Friendswood having gotten hit so hard, but Friendswood is almost, Dickinson, talk about Friendswood and League City haven't gotten hit so hard, but Dickinson is almost barren now. There's nobody there. So they would really like to see more involvement from Commissioner's Court in helping them reevaluate how to move forward. We need to find creative ways to reach out to other sources that may be private to help some of these people get through the tough times, because the national, the federal funding, the state funding, it is taking a long time to go through. We haven't even thought about the additional ramifications of mental health issues that will be coming down the pipe as well.
Let me ask though, I think we all agree on what the problem is. You're sitting in the chair. What do you do with that building?
Well, I think a good example is you can't sit around waiting for state or federal funds. They want to see a local commitment first. You got to go, I think you could doctor, you got 3 options. You got to take care of the work first, and then start working your way down the list. Good example is after Hurricane Ike, the city of Friendswood, we almost completely depleted our 90-day rainy fund, taking care of the needs, knowing that with time, on the backside, we would get reimbursed for those funds. You can't sit around and wait. You got to take action. You got to help those that are desperate. You got to have a heart. At the end of the day, local government is there for the people. It's the people's money. You got to be smart about it. You got to enact a plan. You got to build a plan or enact that plan. And on the backside, I think last time I came off the city council in Friendswood last year, we were reimbursed for around 99% of all the money we spent out that we put out forward for Hurricane Ike. It's only coming back. The county had a huge reserve fund that they've been tapping into. Could have tapped into before the storm to get better pre-prepared for this, and can tap into after the storm.
Commissioner, how about that, fund? How, is it being underutilized, or do you think it's being used the right way right now?
I think what it comes down to is there's a process, there's laws that we have to comply with for procurement. And what I mean by that is we have brought on contractors to do damage assessment and to begin to quantify the damage on a countywide basis and move forward, so we can put together the appropriate package and figure out what we need to do, when we need to do it. We also just recently, at a special meeting yesterday, approved a contract with GrantWorks, which allows us to continue moving forward on the recovery effort. You have to go through the procurement, you have to have contracts in place, because if you don't spend the money properly, and the federal audit, which will definitely come down 7 or 8 years after the disaster, we will have to pay those funds back. let me give you an example. We spent $84.5 million on debris removal from Hurricane Ike. Imagine if we would have had to pay that back. So we want to make sure we do everything properly to ensure the long-term recoverability of our taxpayers and our residents.
Michelle, I'll ask you the same question I've asked the others. If you're sitting in the chair, what are you actually doing to make sure this gets taken care of?
Well, I think there are two components to recovery as a commissioner. One is to follow the guidelines and regulations that are set in place for what the county can and can't do. Then I think there's just simply the human component. If you can't get what you need done one way, you try to find another way to get that accomplished. And that could be through philanthropic, charitable organizations, through the churches, through corporations that have funds set aside to help with things like this. Keller Williams has a great program that is in place for their agents that suffer. And there are many other corporations out there that have funds that are available. It's digging deep, getting creative, and finding the other side of the equation when government prohibits you or limits you.
Bring the mic just down just a little. Hang on, Bill, I'll get Bill and I'll go back to you, Commissioner. On, let me just ask with that, it's, obviously you have to go through what is the bureaucracy of the whole system. What can the county do that's more effective as far as maybe having, you said, have some of this stuff in advance. Now you can't always you can't do contracts a lot. There's some you can do, some you can't. You have some pre-position contracts, but how do you address that if you're on Commissioner's Court?
Well, this isn't our first rodeo, so to me that's a bit of a cop-out, because we had Tropical Analysis, we've had Rita, we've had Ike, and we've had Hurricane Harvey. We know these things are going to come in a couple of years. And there are things you can go on the front side, from pre-position contracts to having requisitions that are ready to go, certain positions that you know that are going to be needed at the time, during and after a storm versus the lead-up time. A good example on Princewood is a lot of the debris contracts. We either have those established or regional every year, just for the case of these types of situations. Vendors bring in food to help with the data recovery. All those things are contracts are in place, ready to execute. And that's something we're not trying to scramble here in the prices when everything already is chaotic enough, trying to establish those contracts. And then the value of doing that is not only to have the legal aspects taken care of, the contracts in place worked out, but you also establish a relationship. You've also been able to have girls talk about, okay, this scenario happens, where are you going to set up? If that place gets washed out, where you put your backup plan, where you set up? It's a lot of little work you do front end that goes a long way.
Commissioner, you wanted to finish up?
I just wanted to comment on the fact that the month after the storm, I held 3 town hall meetings to try to provide information for residents in the affected area. I did one in Friendswood, League City, and Dickinson to bring FEMA and SBA. Then I did a follow-up one just January 8th, and we brought in the long-term recovery project to be able to explain and share with people what services are available and try to get that information out.
It's been interesting in listening, particularly in Dickinson right now. This is an after effect of Harvey. In fact, tomorrow, Councilman Bruce Anderson Dickinson is going to go out on a boat, out on the bayou. Right now, it seems to be a pretty serious situation with debris and silt built up in the bayou. I'm sure we got the same issue with Clear Creek and the other waterways that are around here. It seems to be after covering Ike, for example, that the process of getting in and cleaning out those waterways seems to be a little bit slower than it was before. Or maybe I'm remembering it wrong at the time. But let me ask you, Commissioner, particularly, a good rain comes in, not maybe the 50 inches we had in a 48-hour period before, when a good rain comes in, we're already seeing a situation where high tide, you've got low-lying areas underwater that a little higher than normal when people are trying to recover. As a commissioner, what are you going to do to make sure, because that's a federal project, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, what are you able to do to get that work done and done a lot quicker? Because as we approach summer now, it's going to be a high risk.
That's a good question. And the voters in Galveston County approved money for drainage, regional detention on Dickinson Bayou. Commissioners Court voted on that bond package on August 15th. The storm came on August 25th. So I'd already been thinking about regional detention on Dickinson Bayou because I understood the threat of rising water in Galveston County, especially in the Dickinson Bayou watershed. So I've been working this entire time looking at parcels to secure so we can begin to move forward on regional detention. Why is that important? Because part of the federal funds through the CDBG infrastructure program, there's two programs there. One is housing, one is infrastructure.
We can address that when we get to the bond issue, and that's one of the topics. But
No, but this-
is cleaning up. What's it? I mean, that's down the road. There's no doubt about that, and we can talk about that. But what I'm asking about is there's an immediate need right now to get items, silt, debris that is in those waterways out. What is going to need to be done on a local level to push that forward? That's what I'm asking about.
We are going to have to work to convince Congress to earmark money. And I know people don't like earmarks, but earmarks are a situation where money is designated for a specific project. Sometimes the federal agencies have pots of money out there because during Hurricane Ike, we did some clearing, desnagging, and dredging on Dickinson Bayou. We spent $600,000 of federal money to clean that out from close to Cemetery Road down. We need to continue that process because those projects are very expensive and we need to get to start working on them now. And we are working on them now by hiring the consultants that we've used to do the damage assessments. The damage assessment is what is used for us to be able to go and secure that funding. Everything takes a process. Environmental, you've got to do design, you've got to do all sorts of things to bring those projects to fruition.
Sean?
Well, my understanding is parts of Dickinson Bayou are navigable, so the Army Corps of Engineers can possibly be involved and helping assist with any dredging projects and debris removal. I've also heard that there are concerns about the I-45 bridge at Dickinson Bayou and the bridge at Highway 3, that those particular structures actually acted as dams and assisted in the backup that occurred. So as we are expanding the freeway going down towards Galveston, have we considered, or is it possible to take a look at those structures and while we're dealing with that expansion, possibly deal with those bridges to help in the meantime? And I know those projects take time too, I understand that, but unless you ask the question, how do you know the answer?
My more holistic approach, you're talking about that we need to look at all of that on the bio, but again, taking care of the need now, because I've sat in 3 different city council meetings in Dickinson here recently, where that has been talked about, and the city itself is just strapped and said, we can't make a move. If you're the commissioner, what are you going to do to help them get what they need to get that done?
Well, it's real simple. Air Force would call it centralized control of decentralized transportation. We need the commissioners to work to take the lead, work in and partner with the municipalities, find out whether those that are that boots on the ground, where are your immediate issues? What issues are you seeing? Is this particular part of the drainage ditch, the creek, worse before or after the storm? We start prioritizing what we need. Figure out what we can engage with here to help. Engage with our Corps of Engineers to start developing and working on a long-term plan that's prioritized based on what we're going to find out locally. So there's a lot of things we can do short-term to stop the bleeding, if you will, while we're also working on near-term, long-term.
Commissioner, you wanted to chime in and help?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that on August 27th at about 1:30, I talked with Quincy Allen because we were concerned we were running out of fuel for our first responders.
We should point out Quincy TxDOT.
Quincy Allen is the Houston director of TxDOT. I was talking with him, we needed fuel. We needed for him to find a route so we could bring the fuel trucks in. Why is that important? They were having trouble finding that route. But when I had him on the phone at that time, I said, hey, the feeder roads are acting as a dam. I've said that for years. I've continued to bring that up at Commissioner's Court a number of times through this entire project. The main lanes of 45 are going to be elevated higher than they are now. The reason they say that the feeder road cannot be raised is because if you raise the feeder road, more water will get through and it'll back up at the railroad on Highway 3. That's what the engineers, the hydrologists have told me throughout the years. So I can only rely on the experts to be able to define that. But with the main lanes being raised through the new construction, that will alleviate some of those issues.
I would think some folks who drive in Lake City right now, you get on the Interstate 45 with those temporary entrance ramps and all, I'm not so sure people would agree with you if you're the experts. I get it at this point.
But you bring up a valid point. There is a problem with the traffic exiting Nassau Road 1 and getting on at 518 northbound. The reason those ramps can't be reversed at this time is because there's a feeder road bridge that doesn't allow enough deceleration to be exit and change that configuration until they get the new bridge in. I met with TxDOT over 6 weeks ago on that issue because I saw it on Facebook, and I'm trying to get those issues addressed as people bring them up.
Michelle, I'll let y'all wrap up on this subject. We have one more question under Mike, and then we'll get to some other topics. Michelle, you brought it up, and Commissioner interested about, not only what we talked about, the debris, but also those bridges and working in TxDOT. There's no doubt TxDOT has its own mind sometimes. So, as a commissioner, what would you be doing right now to make sure that feeder road problem you talked about would be addressed?
Well, TxDOT functions very well with really good relationships. And so if you've built a good relationship with them and you have that communication, I think that is key. And I believe, once again, being creative in an approach and possibly coming up with new and different ideas. My understanding is it's not the feeder road that's the problem, it's the concrete barriers that run between the lanes. So what can be done to help ease that area of any future issues that might arise with water and flooding like we've had?
Billy, how about, because that is anyone who knows Gerhard Meineke, who's a Texas City Dickinson resident, depends on what day of the week it is sometimes with him. He's really obsessed with it. I'm sure all three of you have heard from him at least 20 times so far on the subject.
You gotta love Gerhard.
But he's right. Look at that. He was kind of the first to bring up those issues. But Billy, what about the road construction, how it may have contributed?
That's a good point where we need the county commissioner to keep this a viable, relevant subject matter. The further we get away from this disaster, the more people are going to forget, the more people are going to get distracted with other things. That's a very great point, a very necessity that really needs to be addressed. And we have a lot of local survey maps that point out just exactly how high the water did get at those feeder roads, at actually the interstate itself. When I was trying to get in Ellington, the concrete barrier, the water all the way to the top of the concrete barrier, 145. So this is more than just the feeder road, it's actually the freeway itself.
And obviously, with the freak event as it was with Harvey. Last Harvey-related question in here. And I want the audience to participate in this as well here, even though it's not a county-specific issue. Raise your hand if you did not have flood insurance before the storm. So we have a handful of folks. The numbers were a lot higher than this crowd here. It obviously thwarts recovery when up 60 to 70% in some cases, depending on what community you're in, did not have flood insurance. And understanding that that's a federal program and that's handled differently. Well, what as a county commissioner can you do, or the county government can do to encourage folks, besides those national flood insurance cartoons that run over? But I'll start with you, Billy, because you were a councilman in Friendswood where it was a staggering event, number, I think, of how many folks in Friendswood did not have flood insurance. What can you do to help at least encourage it? I know there's nothing you can do legislatively on the county level.
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at this. One is getting education out there, and that's letting the need be known. And there's another thing that's statistics that you can put out there. Also, though, what the county commissioner do is get engaged and get these agencies to work better during the time after disaster foreclosure. One, there's the financial side of why people get involved. The other side of it is it's a nightmare and a headache. I had a 21-unit apartment complex in Dickinson that got 7 feet of water. Fortunately, I had flood insurance. But the pain I was going through was I had flood insurance folks at the National Flood Program company, at the TWA Texas Police Department also working with our state and federal legislatures to make a process not so cumbersome, not so dependent upon the homeowner, the property owner, to be the one that navigates all this insurance requirements. I remember reading somewhere where all the money that was paid out by the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association posted high, that more than half the money paid out went to attorneys, not to helping the homeowner that had damage itself.
And that's been an ongoing argument for a while. Michelle, I mean, if you're, as a commissioner, if you're elected, and I, again, the caveat is that, yeah, the commissioners can't really make anything happen, but what can you do in that level?
Well, no, the commissioners can't make anything happen at our level, but you can work with levels higher up, representatives higher up. That whole problem to me, with people not having flood insurance boils down to lenders. Mortgage lenders allow their clients to go to sleep at the wheel. They tell them if you don't live in a floodplain, you don't need flood insurance. I'm not saying for more regulation or anything like that, but truly the responsibility falls on the lender. As a real estate professional, I always tell my clients to be sure and get flood insurance because we live along the coast. You never know what's going to happen. I even have my clients sign a notice that I've advised them on flood insurance. But then what happens, it goes to the next level and lenders say, oh, you don't need it, and then we get caught. For those people that pay cash for a home, there might be something at the title company that could be a part of the documentation when they transfer title.
And I'm glad you brought up pointing out your profession in the real estate business. So let me just point out, because is there a way that there should be some standards we adopted there that within the real estate community overall, not just realtors or the mortgage companies, but an overall kind of concept of, hey, we need to do a better job of informing folks of this?
Well, I think that most real estate professionals that are true professionals do adhere to the code of ethics, and they do follow TRELA and the TREC rules and guidelines. So as long as you have a real estate professional that does adhere to those ethics, then I think you're fairly safe in giving good advice. But there may be a possible way to work with TREC to make sure that any licensee that's doing transactions does make that information available, because it can happen in the hill country, it can happen in Dallas, it can happen anywhere. We just have to have it happen quite a bit here.
Right. Commissioner, you brought up, you had the public meetings, you heard this a lot from folks about not having flood insurance and then also the insurance not making them whole afterwards. And again, what can be done on a local level to help?
I think it comes down to just people having an appreciation, if you will, of the magnitude of this storm, having an annual amount of rainfall in just the course of 3 days. The one thing that I am working on, one of the things I'm working on is the new firm maps that FEMA is coming out with, slated to have public hearing for 90 days starting in February of this year. But they also told us that in September of 2008 when Hurricane Ike hit, and we still don't have the new firm maps. The base flood elevation has changed and is changing. So what we need to do is encourage entities and the floodplain administrators in the individual municipalities to enforce those base flood elevations, put in detention for new development so there's no net impact on the watershed. Because as we do that and add regional detention, we will be able to lower the level of water in a rising water event. So as we move forward, we need to create an awareness of the new base flood elevation. Those maps are coming out, and I'm implementing a program to notify everybody who's going to be affected by a change in the flood map to be able to have public comment on their individual parcel of property so they can have a say on what the map says.
Michelle, you get one minute. Did you want to say something on that?
I agree with everything Commissioner Clark says, but I'll be real honest with you. Most people that buy property and buy a home up here don't care or know about base flood elevation. It's a big deal in Galveston, but up here it doesn't even compute or click.
It's a little bit too wonky for people sometimes.
It is, and so you have to find a way
But on the same token, Houston, we have a problem. And the only way we can address it, one of the ways we can address that, is by creating awareness of the issue and try to address it on an individual case-by-case basis. Because the problem is, we can't rely on government to do everything for all of us.
And what it comes down to is more of a bully pulpit type of approach to this, I would think. Correct. All right, enough on Harvey. I know we spent 20 minutes on that, but it's what everyone's going through right now, and it's going to be dominating the spending and everything else in the county. All right, next subject up, and Michelle, you were up on, I think, the first question on this, and this was a hot topic a little while ago, but voters overwhelmingly passed the bond issue that we had back in November. First, let me ask you before we get into the detailed parts of this, did you support it? Did you vote for it?
I have to say I did not vote for it. And the reason I did not vote for it was because I felt the timing was not appropriate. Not that I didn't believe or feel that we needed to address the issues encapsulated in that bond. I just felt the timing was wrong.
Okay.
That was it.
Billy, let me ask you, and then Commissioner, and then I think I know where your answer is going to be, Commissioner. But Billy, how about you?
Well, the frustrating thing for me was, I was still up there at the city council when Commissioner Court turned around and asking what that project we had we wanted to get accomplished. My frustration is that when you're going to go out for a bond election, you should have a high-level plan of here's what it is we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to reduce drainage by this amount, this amount. We have a major Cat 5 hurricane hit. This is what we anticipate for these projects will have this impact in these 6 months. This was more of a campaign by vote by vote favor.
Okay, still, when it came time to vote, did you support it? Did you vote for it?
I did not support or vote for it for those reasons. The other reason I didn't vote for it was the dollar amount that's determined and you can see this on the Commissioner's Court workshops, the dollar level they went after was based on how much can we borrow without having to raise taxes. That's not a plan. That's not an educated way to go about selling a bond. That's not what's going to motivate the voters and it'd be a ballot type use of their tax.
But, and I know you say that, but you say it's not going to motivate the voters, but voters, despite this criticism was out there, overwhelmingly, it wasn't close, it was overwhelmingly supported that. Commissioner, I'm pretty certain, given how many times I interviewed you about this, you supported the bond referendums, I should say. But talk about, why, answer some of the criticism here, because you heard that before as well, cherry picking, it was more to get votes, but the voters seemed to buy in on it and overwhelmingly support it.
Well, I think what it comes down to is, when I ran for county commissioner first time, my number one priority was to cut spending, not raise taxes. And one way to not raise taxes is to not raise taxes. And by able to absorb new debt into the existing county budget, the way we do that is through new improvements. That's value that comes on the books this year that wasn't on the books last year. So that's not figured into the formula when we're figuring out the effective tax rate. And we could tell through historical growth that the county was growing sufficiently enough for us to be able to absorb that annual debt payment into our existing debt structure without raising taxes. But we're still going to get $80 million worth of benefits of various projects. $56 million worth of roads, $6 million worth of drainage, $18 million worth of facilities. Facilities didn't pass by a very large margin. That's because people drive on roads and people have gotten flooded. People only go to the medical examiner's building usually once, and it's not a very popular project. But it's a facility that's needed so the DA and law enforcement can do their investigation, so we can have closure for loved ones that may have had an untoward problem.
Gotcha. Michelle, to go back to you on that though, you didn't vote for it, you were against it, it's there now. So, if elected to the Commissioner's Court, what are you going to do to manage the concerns you had before this passed? To see at least, and are there any that it wasn't good projects in there, you thought it wasn't good timing.
Well, I think, like I said, I thought the timing was poor. I didn't think there was enough education for the public to really make an informed decision on both sides. I think that we were still reeling after Harvey, and not everyone was even here to vote. I have to agree with Billy that I think it was a political play, but it's in place and it's going to be working and moving forward. So the roads and the transportation portion of it, I think, are very important. The facilities, from what I understand, we do have quite a few facilities that are in need of repair. It's all about managing now, and it's all about using the money for its intent and not deviating from that management at this point.
Billy, how about you on that? Same question I asked Michelle.
Well, the frustrating part is that this is actually bearing down on us. We were in the process of approving the tax rate, approving the tax budget, and then whether or not we went up to $6 million bond. So the opportunity to recognize we're about to have the worst natural disaster that's ever hit this area, ever hit the country. We have no idea what that dollar impact is going to be. Should we take some preventive measures? Should we stop and reconsider on some of these items and not do time to do it? Like I said, there's nothing better than the smell of democracy in here. Citizens have voted. They're for this. To me, the drainage, $6 million in drainage projects, they won't even do it. Again, these drainage projects were on there prior to the hurricane. So when the first said, I'm going to say, are those still the best projects to go after? Not the $6 million postcard.
Right, and there is some flexibility there, is there not, Commissioner, to use those funds because when they vote on the ballot, the specific projects weren't listed, but you talked about before that using some of that money to get in some federal dollars, maybe expand some of the watershed and the like as well.
Well, going back to Hurricane Ike, I was successful in helping the county move the bond issue forward in 2000. We had Hurricane Ike in 2008. That particular bond package was approved to go to the voters on August 25th. Hurricane Ike happened on September 13th. The voters overwhelmingly approved that bond issue. We've implemented that program and we've done a fair job. There's a few projects that are still outstanding that still need to be done, but those projects are underway at this point. This bond issue was designed before the storm, that's correct. But what this gives us the opportunity to do is the money for each category, transportation, facilities, and drainage. The voters approved it in those areas, so we can't cross-pollinate areas, but we can use that in that area. And under the CDBG Public Infrastructure Program, FEMA or the HUD will not allow us to do property acquisition with federal funds. But if we own 100, 150, 200 acres either together or dispersed, we can draw down 90-10 to do those projects. So in a $3 million or $6 million project, or $6 million, we can draw down $60 million. So I think we have positioned ourselves as Galveston County residents to be able to capitalize on those improvements moving forward. And I would also submit to you that as we move forward and we develop the damage assessment that I'm looking at, I would advocate that we would move forward with additional drainage projects and go to the voters either in May of 19 or May of 20. You're going to ask me, well, why not in November when everybody else votes? Well, we see what happened when we did the 2008 November bond issue. What do we have? Ike. Then we had the 2017 bond issue. We had Harvey. I just don't think I'm going to go there anymore.
I have to say, and that every time the commissioners go out for a bond issue, a hurricane comes. So I'm not so sure. So are we expecting a May hurricane now? Is that what you're kind of warning us about?
Well, I think our risk is reduced there. Or maybe we could all get all the surrounding region to chip in money, and then maybe they'll just teach us not to do it, not want us to do a bond issue.
Michelle, you seem to object to some of what you're hearing the commissioner say right there.
Well, I think I just want to go back and say, as long as these funds are managed properly and used for the purpose intended, I think that's very important, because my understanding, and I was not as involved back in 2008 as I am now, but my understanding
Can I address
We'll
that?
clarify that part, but we can talk about this.
I appreciate that. In 2008, we had 3 propositions. We had $75 million for roads. We had $45 million for facilities. That got us the new health district building, the new agri-life extension building, and I'm forgetting what the third project is. But in the $10 million that Ms. Hatmaker has suggested, we went in with Harris County because the engineers who do hydrology said that by putting in regional detention along Turkey Creek and Mud Gully, that we would reduce the water level on Clear Creek by 9 to 12 inches. At that time in 2008, all the leadership in the city of Friendswood, including former Mayor Harold Whitaker, supported that. As a matter of fact, I can produce the mailer that we did on behalf of the bond where the leadership in Friendswood supported that because it was the beginning to do flood relief for the city of Friendswood, because we're still dealing with the Clear Creek issue, and I'm happy to visit about that if that question comes up.
It's come up a couple of times. Billy, you were, I don't know, you weren't on council at that time, but when it came.
No, he wasn't.
Well, that was pre my time here. I was city council. I just remember as we were taking care of the budgets, we had, the city of Friendswood had $1 million allocated towards the Mud Gully project. That we
Can
carried
respond to
on
that,
for
too.
the better part of 8 or 9 years. And then right as I was leaving city council last May, we were starting to spend that $1 million to make that project.
Did it work? 8 to 9 inches? It's hard to tell when everything's up on as high as it was, right? Go ahead, Michelle.
Probably 20% of residents that were impacted by hard.
Right, that'll work, right?
I understand working with your neighbors with the project that you vetted the vote. And Harris County should be taking care of Harris County side, and Galveston County should be taking care of Galveston County side. We don't need to be giving our money away and continuing to pay taxes on that. And we really don't, or haven't seen much benefit, is my understanding. And like I said, I'm saying that based on information that I've gathered, but there may be more. I'm not on the inside, I don't know.
Real quick, Commissioner, because you.
All I want to say is I support flood control. That was the project that was approved by everybody, including the hydrologist. That's a 3-phase program. First 2 phases allow the consolidated drainage district in Friendswood to be able to do reaches as those cells come on. Additional phases of clearing and desnagging can be done, which will allow water to move through Friendswood more quickly, but we can't do it too quickly, otherwise we flood people downstream, and we don't want to have an impact on the watershed. So that's why we need to ensure that's why we've not spent the $1.5 million that the city of Friendswood put up, nor the $1 million that the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District put up, because that money's in reserve to do the clearing and desnagging as the 3 phases of the Harris County Southeast Detention Facility come available.
Anyone else want to comment on that subject? I know the Commissioner had a lot to say there.
Just curious what took so long. I was on Friendswood City Council for 6 years. The project approved before I was on council, and as I was getting on, it still hadn't been enacted. So it's really a priority, really a need, identified, you know what else, and should have been enacted on much sooner if we don't have that much of time.
Gotcha. And if you want to have any idea of its effect too, I see Don Johnson's in the crowd. I know that's always flooding in Friendswood's been a big issue for him as well. So he's not going to be on stage, but we could probably ask him afterwards. Let's go on to the next topic now. It's budget, taxes, and spending. Commissioner, you have said a couple of times tonight, making sure, watching spending, but also making sure that taxes are lower. I did, before this session came up, just picked out 3 different houses randomly in the precinct and looked at them over the last 6 years. Now, because our tax system is not just the rate, but also the appraised values. And in 2 of those cases, the actual tax bill to the county, just the county portion, the tax bill to the county, was The other one was flat. Obviously, it depends on the house that you're talking about. Is the Commissioners Court doing enough to really give true property tax? I don't want to use the relief term, but some break on folks, bring that rate down, maybe even a little bit lower, or some type of maneuver? Is the Commissioners Court doing enough in your mind?
Well, I think the key there is to realize that the sales tax has reduced every year the last 7 years in a row, over 12% in the last 7 years. The rate is the lowest it's been in the last 17 years. We have no control over values. The only thing we can control is the rate. So the rate when Republicans took over Commissioners Court in Galveston County, because we had a sweep in 2010, the rate was 62.875 cents. Today it's below 55.2 cents. That's 7.6 cents. If we take that 7.6 cents and multiply that by the previous rate that we started at, that's almost a $20 million savings that we're not taking money from the taxpayer. And let me be clear, we do not control values.
Right.
Values are controlled by the Central Appraisal District, and those values go before the Appraisal Review Board, and the person who selects the people on the Appraisal Review Board is the Chief Administrative Judge, because that is a separation of powers issue, because they don't want the state government, or the state was designed so you didn't have one branch of government controlling the appraisal and the rate. There's a separation there.
Yeah, but again, yes, you can't control the appraisals, but you do have control over the rate. And yes, with the way the laws are, it says what the effective rate is and what the rollback rate is and stuff. But can't commissioners do more to bring that rate down even, or is that too risky?
Well, I think what you have is we are in a growing area. Our county is growing. In 2010, when Republicans took over, we went through the redistricting and the census process. We had 291,000 people in Galveston County. I think the latest census number is probably somewhere between 324 and 326. It requires us to be able to accommodate the growth in population. It requires us to spend more money. But when you have the effective rate, that is considered the no new tax rate when you cut the rate below when you take the effective rate or below. And I would submit to you, there is no other entity in Galveston County that has cut their rate sufficiently enough below the effective rate 7 years in a row. Billy can't say that he's cut the rate to no new taxes in Friendswood while he was on council.
Michelle, I mean, is the Commissioners Court doing enough for tax, as I said, I don't like to use the term relief, but to give some folks a little more semblance of another high bill again on my taxes?
You know, the taxation and the valuation is very complicated, because you have the CAD that sets that valuation, and then, of course, you have the county that sets the tax rate. But what we've seen, it's very simple when you break it down. Even when you take out the rollback and the effective and this rate and that rate, we know that home values are going up. So we know there will be more money in the coffers just by that reason. So the burden on the county for their portion of that taxation is what, the courts, the jail. In Precinct 4, you can't really say that there's a lot of roads that are maintained by the county, because there's only, about 5 miles of road that's maintained by the county, and that's out where Commissioner Clark lives. So what does Precinct 4 benefit from that taxation? Honestly, not a whole lot. I'm personally, and this is not popular among real estate professionals, but I am personally for stated value. The CAD finds out what the properties are sold for anyway. And to me, stated value gives a more consistent opportunity to deal with budgets, to see what is happening in the market, and to be able to plan accordingly.
Billy, how about you? The Commissioner brought up about when you were on council about the tax rate. We had a chance to answer that too, but also address what Commissioner's Court can do better.
Well, valuations go into the overall tax value that you pay at the end of the year. To me, I want a government that's going to manage my money like it's my money, like it's, their money. That as valuations go up, there's options that you have. One of the things we do in Frenchwood is give our citizens every tax break we possibly can. We maximize the homestead exemption, which is 20%. We have the over age 60 exemption when we can.
65.
We do, sorry, 65 exemption. So every opportunity we have to reduce the burden for our citizens from a local municipality standpoint, we take it. And I'll take that same philosophy from Commissioner Porter. The other thing about that is when tax valuations are going up, which Commissioner Carter's correct saying that as a municipality, local entity, you have no control over that. What you can control is how much do we lower the tax rate by, and then we use this as an opportunity to take care of this project. In Frenchwood, we have a capital improvement project that's probably over $9 million. We know where our needs are short term, long term, and sometimes that's an opportunity to use some of that extra revenue to take care of those projects. So I would much rather take care of those extra projects that are needed with money to cash out in hand versus micromanaging the budget so tightly that we're not doing the maintenance that we need to do. Therefore, we're going to go out for a bond election every 7 or 10 years. And what bond election means, very expensive issuance costs, very expensive debt costs, and I don't want 75–80% of my tax dollars going to work. I want 100% of my tax dollars going to work.
And I need to move on. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, Commissioner, and then I give everyone 30 seconds on the subject.
Okay, let's be real clear here. I've been criticized for not lowering the rate enough, but then Billy's saying we need to spend the extra money on other projects. The reason we're able to cut 40, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think you're saying prioritize the projects.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what I heard you say. But I'll give you another 15. I interrupted you, so.
All I want to say is that I feel you can spend your money better than the government can spend your money.
Show one more time. You get it? Bill, you want to finish up? All right. So let me on budget. We can go any different direction. Obviously, I think everyone can agree law enforcement needs to get funding from the budget and the like. But have you taken a look at the county budget? And I'm going to start with you, Michelle, on this one. Take a look at the county budget. What's an area that you think needs to be looked at really close right now? And in that area, do you want to cut or increase funding in that area, and how you pay for it? If you do.
In my previous campaign, I felt that the Sheriff's Department needed to be fully funded and supported in every way possible. I was criticized for saying that because that meant we were getting funded as needed. The Galveston County Sheriff's Department tends to train well and then loses deputies to other areas because of pay discrepancy. We should be investing in our community and in our citizens that put their lives on the line for us every day. And I think that we should take heed to some of the consultant reports that have been previously provided in respect to pay grade. And we haven't done that as a county. In fact, we're getting ready to pay for another report to be done. And the first one from years ago is sitting in a drawer somewhere and has never been utilized. So I would hope that this next one, when we invest in those funds, that we'll actually take a look at what the recommendations are.
Right. Commissioner, how about it? It's to find one area.
It's interesting. We've lowered the tax rate 7 years in a row. We've given pay raises the last 6 years in a row. We've given pay raises to the Sheriff's Department of over 20% in the last 4 years. So we're managing your money well. We're doing it efficiently and effectively. We are moving forward, and
Well, is there an area though? I mean, you look at this every day. Is there another area outside the sheriff's office, which you said that you think needs to be looked at budget-wise?
Well, let me give you some examples. We've done outsourcing. We were spending $360,000 a year, giving $150,000 away. What did we do, Steve Patterson? We outsourced that. We added 15% that we were giving away. and we put $145,000 a year in your pocket. We had a contract, we didn't have a contract, never been bid in over 100 years. Contract with the Galveston Daily News. They were charging you $32 a column inch. We put it out to bid. We did record of decision. The Post won that bid with $7 a column inch. And lo and behold, when that bid came back up for renewal, Galveston Daily News came in at $5 and I think 85 cents. So those are the type of things that we look at to try to save you money. Or let's look at property insurance. When Republicans came into office, we had $165 million worth of coverage on every building the county owned.
Okay. Let's say that as for one area, I'll let you finish that one thought and then we'll get back.
$165 million in insurance. If we needed that much insurance, that's an extinction level event. So what did we do? We were spending $3.2 million in that arena. We did a $40 million umbrella. Did all our base insurances. So we took the difference between the 3.2 and the 1.3 we were spending, and we're putting that into reserves so we can become self-insured. But don't forget, I'm going to get criticized because the county's fund balances are too high. We're saving too much money. But what people don't understand is a lot of that money is earmarked and dedicated funds that we really can't spend outside that area.
Michelle, I'm not back to you to let you expand a little bit on your thought. But Billy, how much, is there any area of the budget you looked at or you want to address anything you heard your opponent saying tonight?
Well, the published fiscal year 17 budget was almost just shy of $200 million budget, with a little over $130 million at the end of the general fund. So the biggest part of what we were spending money on our employee salaries. I mean, we have 1,200 employees. That's what they expected. To me, it's fundamentally, you got to look at why do we do what we do? We're collecting your tax money to take care of services for you. To me, what really needs to happen is we need to evaluate all those services that we're providing, get an understanding of what quality level of those services are we providing, and is that the right level? You know, is it subpar, is it par, is it above average? And then you take an educated approach to figure out where do we need to shore up, maybe spend a little more money, to at least some of that, the hardness and energy of those local employees, get more out of them, with a little bit of investment, it's not a productivity, they get even more return on that expense. The other opportunity is maybe we're spending, you know, maybe you guys only want the mediocre level service, but we're giving you more of the luxury sedan type service. So maybe that's an opportunity we can come back to. But that's the beauty of that. As you go through that exercise, you can have an objective criteria to evaluate those areas to understand, and you have those discussions with other municipalities. So we do this in partnership together to understand, okay, maybe from a county side, we'll provide that more in precinct 4, but we're not in precinct 2. So that's to me where the commission short has to come in and be that glue that integrates the municipalities rather than separating them and wasting funds.
And a little tough because it's easy to say when you're on Commissioner's Court, all right, we need to evaluate everything and look for efficiencies and everything else. But you're dealing with other elected officials who are running their own offices. You've seen plenty of fights go back for years of don't tell me how to run my office. Usually it's because there's been a cut coming. I've never seen any of these elected officials turn down extra money. But that makes it a little tough when you start telling folks, so how do you make sure you work with those other elected officials? Because that's where county government's different from the city government, for example.
And that's where your style and approach comes into, and they're going to, what is your intent, what are you trying to accomplish? If you're being secretive, you're being manipulative, or you're known for punishing those that didn't support you, or punishing those that impact you, you're going to get that exact same reaction you expect. When you take the approach of, we're all in this together, we got to how do we optimize the tax dollar, whether it's a county tax dollar or it's a city tax dollar, how do we best optimize this business? Because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer's tax dollar. If we're all right about it, we come together, we figure out ways to optimize that without having to protect our reserves because of things like that.
Shall you get the final word on the subject?
Well, I think I really have to agree with Billy. Some of those fights have been very unnecessary, and it's had to do with hidden and ulterior agendas. I walk into the tax office in League City. I walked in there the other day, and there was a line literally around the whole interior area. It's snaked around like, Astro World or something. And these poor people were standing there and waiting and waiting and waiting, and the staff is working as diligently as they can. But, that office can't even get a half a person to help. And so I don't think that we have any Cadillac situations with services by any means, because these guys have cut. Gotta say, they cut. Sometimes sometimes they're penny wise and pound foolish in their cutting. But people, we live in an area of very educated people. They are smart enough to know that you pay what you get what you pay for. They don't mind paying for the necessary services that are handled properly, but they truly do not like not getting the service they want and need. And that's something we need to come to better balance in.
You're talking about the bid. This actually, this next question allows you to address what you were hearing here.
Okay.
Because obviously, we can't talk about things in a primary without getting a little bit of politics that plays in there, and that is a good segue here. But there was a time it was Republicans versus Democrats in this county. Now, the last I checked, in Galveston County, Democrats are actually on the endangered species list. And we're a one-party county for the most part that's out there. So it's Republicans versus Republicans. And just go, I've covered politics in this county for 28 years now. And I covered the bad days of the Democrats when they were really going after it, when they were the single party around here, and Republicans was a bad word. And the infighting that was happening then, while we took fisticuffs every once in a while, that was a longshoreman back then, but you know, it hasn't gotten that bad, but it's gotten pretty nasty right now, including the accusation you just heard, Commissioner, that Commissioner's Court takes out revenge on folks that speak out against it. Address that. I mean, about the impact, because the politics does come into play here. It's not just policy.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to address the question. Let me say this. When I got involved, there were only 3 elected Republicans countywide. Today, there's only 3 elected Democrats countywide, and I'd like to say that I had an integral part in making that happen. The issue with the tax office, we gave Ms. Johnson a position for League City 2 or 3 years ago. We expanded another station in League City. We are a growing, vibrant community. At certain times of the month, you're going to stand in line. That's just the nature of the beast. We've got a district clerk's office that we're doing passports. 174 Calder Road at the district clerk's office. It's a good revenue generator for the county. There's a line there. But we are methodically doing things that allow us to be good stewards of the taxpayer money. You know, some want to say it's politically motivated. Well, when Commissioner's Court is presented with budget amendments of $1 million for court-appointed attorneys, and then 2 months later, another budget amendment for another $1 million for court-appointed attorneys. Somehow, if I don't like that, because I'm a steward of the taxpayer money, now I'm the villain.
Michelle, how about it? The political infighting that's going on, whether in Commissioner's Court, in County Courthouse, or out there, what can be done to, or is it a good thing right now that's happening?
So we're just talking about within the county and commissioner's court?
No, everywhere. Trust me, it goes way beyond that. I mean, there's darkened corners. This is probably the largest list of precinct chair contested races I've ever seen as well. I mean, it's gotten that down ballot on a level of this fighting. There's a lot, and it may be a good thing. I mean, I will admit, it's good for people like me in the media.
Well, hurricanes, we kind of laugh about and joke about hurricanes cleansing the communities. Well, I think we're having a hurricane in the Republican Party right now. I truly do. I think there is a cleansing that's going on. I think the people that truly care about the party and are dedicated to sharing the ideals and the platform and growing the party organically are coming out. They feel like there's an opportunity for new voices. It's hard when there's change. I think that we should grow as a party, but we should do it respectfully. Just because I don't agree with Billy or I don't agree with Ken on certain issues doesn't mean we can't be adults and do it respectfully. And we have teetered on losing that respect, and it's unfortunate. A lot of headstrong people in the party, a lot of educated people in the party, a lot of people that are very passionate. Being a Republican is like, it's evangelical to some people. And you want that, but it's a matter of respecting our neighbors and our friends and not carrying over into personal relationships if at all possible. lost friends recently because of stances that I've taken, and that's unfortunate. I still consider them friends, but because I have a different political view, may not feel the same way about me. And they're Republicans. That's sad.
Billy, I'm not at the infighting that's going on.
Well, I'll have to real quick for TJ. It's very unfortunate as a weakness of the people, and it's disgusting to see it going on. But that's the beauty of democracy. If you don't like it, vote them out. This is your opportunity to get involved, get engaged, say enough is enough, take a stand, and let's do something about it.
All right, we're going to wrap it up, a quick rapid fire on this topic, and then we're going to let you have your, because we want to get out of here by 8. We'll be a little bit late, folks. We're sorry on that. So, on that, I'm going to put you all on the spot here, real fast. So, I'm going to ask the one question. Yes, I never do that, right? So here we go. Who are you backing for county judge, Commissioner?
Mark Henry.
Michelle?
I can honestly say I have not decided yet. I am waiting to see what happens.
And we have a forum coming up to make her decision.
I will make a decision later because I see pros and cons on both sides, actually.
Billy?
Well, I'll put it simply, I'm focused on my race and trying to make sure that I don't let Commissioner's Court be able to work with whichever judge our race is to the Galveston County decides to vote with.
All right, I'm not done yet, so I'm going to ask
That's
the
the
question.
politically correct answer.
Yeah, okay, so
Be honest.
I will go back the other way now because you're going to have to work with one of these folks if they're elected. I'll start with you, Billy, and we'll go back the other way now. Commissioner Precinct 2, Joe Juicy or Kevin O'Brien?
Again, I'll work with whichever one that the great citizens of Precinct 2 decide to elect. Both of them are good men, both of them are serving with a passion and for what I consider a citizen's heart, trying to do best by their citizens. I have the honor to work with everyone.
Michelle?
This one I can't answer because I have had the opportunity to see both in action, and I know and understand Joe Juicy's approach to being a commissioner, and I fully support him 100%.
Commissioner?
I've seen Kevin O'Brien in action, and he is much more effective than Joe Juicy was or is.
Should point out it's going to be round 3 between those two. Each one has a win in there, so this is like a rubber match in a 3-game series.
You know, the interesting thing about that, it was only 83 vote difference between the two in the last race.
It's been close every single time. And then now, we'll start with you, Michelle. State Rep 23, Wayne Fairclough or Mays Middleton?
Mays Middleton all the way.
Billy?
Again, I thought they were good men. Wayne's done a great job.
Okay, we'll move on.
I see a lot of positive in Mays Middleton. I would like to see the elected officials go through the trials and tribulations of the lower office first. I'm most respectful of Mays President going to this first office when we send up high office. I'm most respectful of both guys and hope the best man.
So, but are you backing Wayne?
No, I'm not backing either one of them.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure I clarify that. All right, Commissioner.
I've got my own race to win, but I would say that there's nothing that Wayne has done that would justify him being removed from office.
And it's become more high profile. It's obviously been a tight, contest, but when the governor came out last week, it kind of changed. It was a game changer, I think. All right, let's get into our candidates here today, folks. And sorry to hold you over there. I'm sorry about the audio, folks. We will let our featured forms have that taken care of. So we did 2 drawings before we got up here, and you got to draw who got the first question. We rotated out. Then it's kind of like football, where you flip the coin and get to defer to the second half. And so, so this is the order that we will go for the closing arguments or your elevator speech, if you want to call it that. From that, we'll start with Billy, and then we'll go to Commissioner Clark, and then Michelle Hatmack will go last. So, Billy, 3 minutes.
I don't know if it's because I've worn our nation's clock for 20 plus years, and I know that it doesn't seem to be the politically correct thing these days. But I love my country. I'm proud to be a Texan, and that's why I'm getting involved in running this county commissioner's race. I've been running under the tagline that great leadership here. While that in itself should be enough, to me it's more than the care is an acronym of what I consider to be a job description of what it takes for our elected officials to have the honor and right to represent you guys. That first one being character. Can you imagine where we'd be as a country, state, local municipalities, and more of our elected officials with people with character? Second, it should be about people, not politics. One of the biggest compliments I ever received was from the lady that used to come to the city council meetings and Friendswood regularly. I didn't see her for 3 or 4 months. Finally came to a meeting, I talked to her afterwards, and said, where have you been? And he said, she made the best compliment ever. So you guys are just boring. You make politics boring in Friendswood. I said, thank you very much. Because when we're focused on doing your job, get breadth of knowledge, education, experience, and then you bring that into the elected position. Use that talent, use those resources to best represent those that elected you. My promise to you, I'm going to fight for you every day. I have a track record that's proven it. I've worked in 5 different industries, had 4 college degrees, and I'm ready to put that to work and to use for you. My promise to you is I'm not going to fight with our judges. I don't have an ego. It's about getting results for you, because I'm going to find a way to work with our judges. I'm not going to divide up and divvy up municipalities. Me, the county commissioner, should be the one integrating those municipalities. The cities of Dickinson, Bridgewater, these cities should be going at it along trying to figure out what to do. The county commissioner can be integrating that and optimizing the tax dollar for you. Shouldn't be worried about it. It's a big city tax dollar. At the end of the day, it's your tax dollar. It's our job to optimize it to the best of our abilities. For all those reasons, and because it's time that we get honest, effective, ethical leadership representing the county commissioner precinct 4, is why I'm running to be your representative. And I would be honored to have your vote, and I would be honored to represent you guys on Commissioner's Court. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate it. Commissioner Clark.
I would like to thank you all for sticking with us this evening. I think I've got the experience, the knowledge, the background. I've developed the relationships through being on the HGAC Board of Directors, the HGAC Transportation Policy Council. Did I mention that tomorrow they're going to be naming me the vice chairman of that committee? Next year I'll be the chairman. Next year is when the RPT, Regional Transportation 2045 plan comes out. I-45 is under construction. Highway 146 is getting ready to be constructed from Genoa Red Bluff all the way down to 96. We've got public hearings moving forward on I-45. I've got the vision, the leadership skills to move Galveston County forward. Not only have we raised taxes and cut the debt, our bond rating's gone from AA to AAA. Only 1 of 10 counties in the state, and the only one on the Texas Gulf Coast. That's an accomplishment, because when we went out and sold bonds in December, we got a bond rate of 2.18%. That's a good opportunity for us to leverage those dollars with the federal money that's coming through with Hurricane Harvey. I've been through Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Harvey. I know how to implement those programs as we move forward for maximum recovery and leverage of those dollars. Remember, I work for you. I feel you can spend your money better than the government can spend your money, and that your vote matters. I thank you for your consideration, and remember, Ken Clark, County Commissioner, works for you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Michelle, you get the final word. Well, actually, I'm going to get the final word, but you get the final speech. How about that?
Okay, everything they said, and I've lived in Galveston County pretty much my whole life, except for 3 years. I moved here when I was about 3 years old. I am a business owner, a woman-owned business owner, and I've been in business for 37 years here in this county. I've been through the ups and downs that each of you have seen and experienced as well. We've had several events in our area, and we've had the same commissioner through pretty much all of those events. Allison, we had the Rita debacle. We saw what happened with Katrina. We had Ike. In fact, many people that lived on the island during Ike moved up here to Lee City and Friendswood to get away from that. And then they went through it again. Then we had Hurricane Harvey. And now we're moving forward, but in a way we're still floundering. I think that, and this is no disrespect to Ken and everything that he's done and accomplished, because I appreciate much of what he said, but I believe in term limits. And I believe that it's time to allow new and fresh ideas on Commissioner's Court. I believe our political landscape across the country has changed. Thank you, President Trump. And I believe that people want new and innovative ideas. And I think the only way you get that is by allowing other people to step up and to run for office. I believe with the business knowledge and experience that I can take and carry forward. I don't have 4 degrees. I don't have a military background, but I have something deep inside me that has carried me through and helped me to succeed in life as well. And I want to be an example to those people that may not have an opportunity to get 4 degrees. I want to be an example to those young people coming into our community and our area. involved. I remain involved in the Republican Party, and I continue to serve the Republican Party. I have the endorsement of County Commissioner Precinct 1, Darrell Apfel. I have the endorsement of County Commissioner Precinct 2, Joe Juicy, and it's because they believe in me, they know that I've learned the job, and they know that I will be an asset to Commissioner's Court overall. I may be running for County Commissioner Precinct 4, but I have a clear understanding that I work for every citizen, Republican or Democrat, Libertarian or Independent, Black, white, Hispanic, whether they can speak, see, or hear, or whether they can't. And that's the county commissioner that I want to be and will be, and that is my promise to